Hey guys, it's late evening in the city, and the glow of harsh white parking lot lights washes over cracked asphalt. Shopping carts rattle in the distance, and somewhere a car alarm blares, then dies into silence. You're standing there, clutching the strap of your worn backpack, when a sleek black Mercedes glides into the lot, its engine humming like a predator waiting to pounce. Out steps a man in a perfectly pressed suit, shoes polished so bright the neon reflects off them. His watch catches the light like a shard of gold, the Ruthless Property Tycoon. Everyone in the neighborhood knows him, the billionaire who buys up old buildings, evicts tenants, flips properties, and grows richer off people's struggles. And right now, he's looking straight at you. "You don't belong here," he says loudly, his voice carrying across the empty rows of cars. "A homeless man standing in my lot? Pathetic." His laugh echoes, sharp and cruel, like metal scraping concrete. A couple walking by slows their pace, curious. A security guard shifts uneasily but says nothing. The tycoon doesn't stop. He steps closer, waving a set of car keys like they're weapons. "You'll never understand business, property, investment. Men like me build this city. Men like you? You're the trash I sweep out." Your chest tightens, the sting of humiliation burning hotter than the cool night air. You could walk away. You could lower your head. But instead, you stand there, silent but steady, your eyes locking on his. Because deep inside, behind the beard grown too long and the clothes frayed at the edges, there's a memory. A memory of boardrooms, of contracts signed, of blueprints sketched with steady hands. And for a split second, the tycoon falters under your gaze. He doesn't know it yet, but something is shifting. What happens next will change everything. So, before we go any further, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now back to the lot. The tycoon turns away from you, chuckling, tossing his keys in the air. He doesn't realize his voice still rings in your ears. Doesn't realize. He's planted a spark. "Go sleep under a bridge," he sneers. "That's all you're good for." And then, something small but telling happens. He drops an envelope. A torn edge reveals the corner of an architectural drawing, lines sharp and clean, though the paper is creased. You notice it instantly. The kind of drawing only someone who's lived with architecture could recognize. The kind of work you once did. You don't move to pick it up. Not yet. The guard scoops it and hands it back to him. But in that brief glimpse, the city inside you stirs. The way those angles met. The way the structure was designed. It was bold, but flawed. Flawed in ways the tycoon couldn't see. He slides back into his Mercedes and revs the engine, but his last words hang in the air. "Remember, this city belongs to me." Tires screech, and he's gone. The silence he leaves behind is heavier than his insult. You breathe slow, the smell of oil and asphalt mixing with the faint sweetness of blooming trees from the edge of the lot. And in that quiet, your thoughts begin to race. You remember the drafting tables, the endless nights of study, the first time you stood in front of a client and explained why a building shouldn't just stand. It should breathe. You remember the day the recession hit, when contracts dried up, when bills outpaced savings, when the property you designed for others left you with nothing of your own. One failure became two. Two became a landslide. Soon the apartment was gone. The firm dissolved. Friends vanished like shadows at dawn. And now you're here. But tonight feels different. Because tonight, someone reminded you of who you are. Not in kindness, but in cruelty. And that cruelty cuts so deep it carves open the truth you've tried to bury. You walk slowly out of the lot, the hum of fluorescent lights fading behind you, yet every step feels like a drumbeat. The tycoon thinks you're invisible. He thinks power belongs to him alone. But power is not always in suits or shiny cars. Power sometimes lives in memory and skill, in the quiet dignity of a man who has seen rock bottom and still breathes. And though you don't know it yet, the insult you endured tonight is the spark of a fire that will turn the tables. That torn, Envelope on the asphalt wasn't just paper. It was a door. And soon that door will open. Because you, the black homeless man standing in the shadow of wealth, are not finished. Not by a long shot. The night folds into morning, and you wake with the sound of trucks unloading crates somewhere behind the alley. Your back aches from the cold concrete, but you've learned to stretch slow, to rise with deliberate care so the stiffness doesn't win. Around you, the city hums awake. The hiss of bus brakes, the bark of street vendors setting up, the faint clatter of bottles being gathered for recycling. You sling the old backpack over your shoulder and step out into the light. Your shoes scuff against the pavement, worn thin but still carrying you forward. That parking lot insult is still alive in your chest, each word replaying like a cruel song. Pathetic. Trash. Bridge. But here's the strange thing. Beneath the sting, you feel a flicker of pride. Not because of what he said, but because you didn't bend. You stood still, silent but steady, meeting the tycoon's eyes without flinching. For a man who once had everything and lost it all, holding dignity in silence feels like a victory. The world sees only a homeless man. They don't see the calluses shaped by decades of design work, the notebooks filled with sketches hidden at the bottom of your pack. They don't know that years ago, a CEO once leaned across a polished boardroom table to shake your hand after you unveiled a design that would change his skyline. They don't know you walked through universities with honors pinned to your chest. Now your honors are the quiet kind, helping another man patch a tarp before rain, splitting your sandwich with the boy who plays his violin for coins near the station, stepping in when two men argue too loudly, easing them back before fists fly. It's in these fragments of dignity, small, unspoken choices that you prove you are not broken. But the city doesn't celebrate that. The city looks at you and turns away. And yet you've learned to hear things others miss. The sigh in, a businessman's breath as he stares at a contract he doesn't want to sign. The quiver in a waitress's hand when the tray she carries feels heavier than her life. You see the lines of struggle etched into faces the way you once studied the lines of blueprints. That's when you notice him again. The ruthless tycoon. Not in person, yet, but in the headlines on the discarded newspaper stuffed against the alley's grate. Property deal of the decade, Harrington Eye's new development. His grin, smug and wide, beams from the page. And there, in smaller print, is mention of his plan to bulldoze a block of old apartments, replacing them with luxury condos. The same apartments where you once stayed with friends when the first cracks appeared in your life. Your jaw tightens. His deal means erasing another pocket of the city, wiping away stories of working families for glass towers no one you know can afford. You fold the newspaper, slip it under your arm. To anyone watching, it's just a scrap to keep warm later. But to you, it's a reminder, a marker. Proof that the man who humiliated you last night is still carving his empire on the bones of others. And still, you carry on. You head to the soup kitchen, where the air smells of coffee and bread. A volunteer smiles at you, and you nod back. You take your seat in the corner, as you always do, but today your mind isn't on the food. It's on that envelope he dropped. Those lines you glimpsed for only a heartbeat. Something about them bothered you. The span too wide, the angles misjudged. Flaws that would collapse under pressure. That itch won't let go. Later, when the evening settles again and the streets grow quieter, you pull the small sketch pad from your pack. The pencil, worn nearly to the nub, scratches across the paper. At first, it's just idle marks, arches, beams, lines of stress you know by heart. But then, as though summoned by his insult, the shape of that building comes back to you. You redraw it, correcting the flaws, shifting the load-bearing columns, tightening the structure. By the time you pause, the streetlight above you flickers, moths circling the glow. And there on the page lies a design better than anything that man waved around last night. You stare at it, heart heavy but alive. For years, you've told yourself it doesn't matter anymore, that you lost your chance, your career, your name. But the pencil in your hand proves otherwise. Skill doesn't vanish because money disappears. Knowledge doesn't rot with poverty. And brilliance, no matter how buried, still shines when you let it. A drunk passing by glances at your paper. Looks fancy, he mutters, stumbling on. He doesn't know what he's just seen. Hardly anyone would. But you do. You know. And soon, someone else will too. Because dignity is not just in how you endure insults. It's in how you rise, even if the world still calls you fallen. And tonight, as you slip the sketchpad back into your bag, you feel it. The faintest pulse of something you thought was gone forever. Hope. The city doesn't slow down for anyone, least of all a man sleeping rough. By the next afternoon, the sidewalks are alive with horns, shouting vendors, and the rhythmic beat of subway grates releasing gusts of hot air. You move with the crowd, your backpack pressing into your shoulder, the newspaper folded tight under your arm. You're not looking for trouble. You're just following the quiet pull of routine. But fate has other plans. Because that's the thing about truth. It has a way of surfacing, even when buried under years of dust and silence. You turn the corner into a quieter block, the kind lined with cafes that smell of roasted beans and office buildings where people stride fast, phones glued to their ears. A group of suited men and women spill from a revolving door, their voices sharp with business talk. Among them, you recognize him instantly, the Ruthless Property Tycoon. His laugh is unmistakable, the same jagged sound that sliced through you in the parking lot. But it's not him that stops your breath. It's what slips from the briefcase of the man walking beside him, a portfolio case snapping open just for a second. Papers spill, fluttering across the pavement like startled pigeons. And there it is again, blueprints, bold, grand, expensive, and flawed. People bend down to help, gathering sheets before the wind carries them away. You crouch, your hands trembling slightly as you retrieve one. For a moment, no one notices you. And in that moment, you see it clearly. The same flawed angles, the same weak span. Your pencil marks from the night before echo in your mind. Careful with that. The assistant snaps, snatching the sheet from your hand. But the damage is done, because the investor walking behind the group pauses. His eyes meet yours. Not in disdain, not in mockery, but in curiosity. You looked at that paper like you understood it, the investor says, his tone measured. He's older, silver hair, sharp eyes that miss nothing. The tycoon stiffens, already annoyed at the delay. You swallow, steadying your voice. I did, and it won't stand. The load-bearing column placement is off. Your foundation will sink. In less than 10 years. The tycoon whirls, face reddening. Ignore him, just a homeless man. Knows nothing of business or design. He spits the word homeless like poison. People on the sidewalk slow, listening, curious. But the investor doesn't look away. He tilts his head. Interesting, how would you fix it? Your fingers itch. You want to reach for your sketch pad to show the corrections you drew last night. But in this moment, words are your only tools. So you speak slowly, explaining how the stress lines distribute, how the span needs narrowing, how small changes in angle would keep the building alive instead of crumbling. The crowd hears not just a man on the street, but an architect, a visionary, who once breathed life into steel and stone. The tycoon laughs, but there's a tremor beneath it. Nonsense, don't waste your time listening to him. He's nothing. But the investor's gaze sharpens. Nothing doesn't speak with precision. Nothing doesn't sound like experience. His eyes linger on you for a beat longer before he turns to the tycoon. Perhaps you're the one. Wasting time. The group shuffles, awkward silence hanging between expensive shoes and your scuffed sneakers. And in that silence, you feel something you haven't in years. Recognition, not pity. Not mockery. Recognition. You watch them leave, the tycoon fuming, the investor still glancing back once. When they disappear into the building, you lean against the wall, heart racing. The humiliation of the parking lot hasn't vanished, but it's shifting, transforming. Because today, the city saw more than a homeless man. Today, the city glimpsed the architect still alive inside you. Later, when you return to your usual corner, you can't resist. You pull out the sketch pad again, flipping to the page with your corrected design. You trace the lines with your finger, whispering the words you once used to pitch in shining offices. A building is not just walls, it's a promise. A structure must endure, not just for decades, but for generations. The echoes of your lost. Blueprints fill the air, and for the first time in years, they don't sound like ghosts. They sound like a beginning. And somewhere, you can't know it yet, but that investor is already asking questions. Questions that will lead back to you. The days blend into each other, but not quite the same as before. Ever since that moment, on the sidewalk, when the investor's eyes locked onto yours, you've felt a tremor running through the rhythm of your life. Something invisible shifted. You still wake on cold pavement, still wait in line at the soup kitchen, still hear the whispers of strangers labeling you nobody. But underneath it all is a hum, a quiet vibration of possibility. It comes to a head 2 evenings later. You're sitting on a low wall near the train station, watching the blur of commuters rushing to catch their rides home. The smell of roasted peanuts drifts from a vendor's cart. You keep your sketch pad open, pencil moving without thought, refining that same design again and again, correcting the flaws, strengthening the angles. Still at it, are you? The voice startles you. When you look up, it's him, the investor. No entourage this time, no papers fluttering in the wind, just him in a dark coat standing with the weight of curiosity in his stance. You freeze, unsure if this is confrontation or opportunity. "Just keeping my hands busy," you murmur. He steps closer, eyes flicking to your sketch pad. You instinctively pull it back, but he lifts his palms in a calming gesture. "I don't mean harm, may I?" Reluctantly, you turn the pad toward him. His gaze sharpens as he studies the lines. For several long seconds, the chaos of the station fades, leaving only the sound of his quiet hum of recognition. "You corrected Harrington's design," he says finally. His tone isn't accusatory, it's impressed. "How did you know?" Your throat tightens. "Because I've drawn buildings like that my whole life, and I've seen what happens when shortcuts are made." Harrington, the ruthless property tycoon. His name sounds like poison even from the investors. Mouth. The investor nods slowly. "You're not just guessing, are you? You know architecture." You hesitate, then let the truth escape. "I was an architect once, years ago. I lost everything. The recession, a failed firm, too many risks, and once you fall far enough, people don't ask what you were. They only see what you are now." His eyes soften, but not with pity, with consideration. "So, you live on the streets. Yet you see flaws my team didn't, and you carry the discipline to redraw by hand what others rely on computers to calculate." The tycoon's laugh from that parking lot drifts back into your memory. Pathetic. Trash. The sound of it burns, but it fuels you. The investor folds his arms. "You may not realize it, but you embarrassed Harrington. He's been chasing me for weeks, eager for me to fund his latest deal. But when you spoke, well, let's just say it left an impression." He leans closer, voice dropping lower. "Tell me, do you think you could redesign the entire project from the ground up?" The question slams into you harder than the coldest wind. Could you? Years have passed since you sat at a drafting table with a firm backing your work. But when you look down at your sketch pad, you already know the answer, because you've been doing it every night since that insult. "Yes," you whisper, steady. "I could." The investor's lips curve into the faintest smile. "Then, perhaps it's time someone gave you that chance. I don't put money into arrogance, but I do invest in vision. And you, my friend, have vision." You blink, caught between disbelief and a swelling warmth you haven't felt in years. Recognition. "Again, not of your homelessness, but of your worth. I want you to come with me," he continues. "Tomorrow, quietly. Harrington doesn't need to know. I want to see what you can do with a real desk, real paper, real tools." Your heart pounds so hard you can barely nod. Tomorrow. A desk. Tools. Not a wall beneath a street lamp, not scraps of paper salvaged from trash, but a real chance to breathe life into your designs again. He pats your shoulder lightly before stepping back toward the station entrance. "Be there. Don't make me regret noticing you. And then he's gone, swallowed into the sea of commuters. You sit frozen, staring at the sketch pad. For a moment, you can almost hear the echo of your younger self, confident, sharp, unstoppable, reminding you that you never stopped being that man. You just needed someone to look past the surface. But deep down, you also know this. Tomorrow will not just be about designs. It will be about proving that dignity can't be bulldozed by arrogance, that the city doesn't belong to men like Harrington alone. Tomorrow, the real test begins. Morning comes sharp and restless. You hardly sleep the night before. Your mind tangled with angles, curves, and stress lines, your heartbeat louder than the traffic outside. The investor's words replay again and again. Tomorrow. A real desk, real tools. When you rise from the bench where you dozed, your back cracks like old wood, but your eyes feel alive. You brush yourself off, straighten your jacket the best you can, and walk toward the office district. The investor is true to his word. At precisely 9, you find him waiting at the lobby doors of a tall glass building that reflects the morning sun like a blade. He nods at you as if you're not a stranger in tattered clothes, but a colleague expected. Inside, the air smells of polish and coffee. The receptionist's eyebrows rise at the sight of you, but the investor doesn't waver. He simply says, "He's with me." You're led into a wide boardroom, long table, leather chairs, a wall of windows overlooking the city skyline. For a moment, it all feels like a dream you've stumbled back into. On the table lies a blank roll of drafting. Paper, clean, unmarked, waiting. "Show me," the investor says softly. Your hands tremble as you pick up a pencil, not stubby, not worn to nothing, but sharpened, balanced, alive with possibility. For a heartbeat, doubt floods you. It's been years since you worked on anything official. But then you inhale, steadying yourself. You unroll the paper, and with the weight of silence pressing in, you begin to draw. The first lines come hesitant, but soon muscle memory returns. Angles sharpen, beams stretch, curves flow with intention. Your wrist glides, your breath evens out, and the design begins to take form. Not Harrington's flawed blueprint, but yours. A building that isn't just a box of steel and glass. It's a structure that holds weight with grace, that channels light into its heart, that will last for generations without cracking under time. The room fills with the sound of pencil scratching, paper, and slowly people gather. Assistants peeking in, curious, a secretary pausing with a tray of coffee, even a junior architect stepping closer, eyes widening as the design reveals itself. You pause, then flip the paper, sketching another angle, this time a cross-section. You explain as you go, not to brag, but because the words rise naturally. How the load-bearing shifts here, how airflow improves there, how small adjustments transform failure into permanence. The investor leans in, watching every stroke. His expression grows brighter, sharper, like a man seeing gold uncovered beneath dirt. By the time you set the pencil down, the boardroom is no longer silent. A murmur ripples through the small crowd of onlookers. One whispers, "That's genius." Another, "I never thought of that solution." You step back, wiping your palms against your worn jacket. The drawing sprawls across the table like a living thing, powerful, elegant, undeniable. The investor exhales, a slow, deliberate breath. "Remarkable," he says, "absolutely remarkable." Someone else in the room asks cautiously, Who is he?" The investor's lips curve slightly. A man Harrington dismissed as worthless in a parking lot. Gasps ripple, heads turn toward you with fresh eyes, no longer seeing only the ragged clothes or the fatigue etched into your face. They see the architect. The investor straightens, voice carrying authority now. "Harrington promised me vision, but what I see here is real vision. This design, this man, is what I'm investing in." The words sink into you, heavy and unreal. For so long, the city labeled you invisible, disposable. And now, in this boardroom, people whisper admiration, respect. You want to laugh, to cry, to scream, all at once. But instead you simply nod steady, because dignity means meeting triumph the same way you met insult, with quiet strength. The unrolling sketch lies between you and the world, no longer just graphite on paper, but proof. Proof that brilliance doesn't vanish with hardship. Proof that arrogance can't erase skill. Proof that the man humiliated in the parking lot is not broken, only waiting for this moment. And outside the tall glass windows, the city stretches toward the horizon, unaware that its skyline is about to change. The boardroom doesn't empty after you set the pencil down. If anything, it grows fuller. Word spreads fast through the building, and within the hour, more faces filter in. Junior associates, senior architects, even a regional director who rarely leaves his private office. All of them gather around the unrolled sketch like pilgrims before a shrine. You stand at the edge of the table, trying not to shrink beneath their gazes. The investor stays close, arms folded, his face unreadable. Finally, he turns toward the group. "Ladies and gentlemen," he says, voice calm but commanding. "This is the kind of thinking I expect from visionaries. Harrington has been chasing my investment for months, promising innovation. Yet, here, today, we see true innovation." A ripple of whispers. Someone mutters Harrington's name like a curse. Another leans closer to the drawing, murmuring, "This design solves everything we warned him about." The room shifts, interest sharpens, respect flows in your direction. And then, as if summoned by pride itself, the doors swing open. Harrington storms in. His suit jacket flares behind him, his watch catching the light like a challenge. His eyes dart from the crowd to the paper to you, and his face darkens. "You?" he spits. "What is he doing here?" The investor doesn't flinch, demonstrating competence, something I expected from you but haven't seen. Harrington strides forward, snatching the corner of the sketch, glaring at the lines as though they've betrayed him. This is theft. He's a fraud, a homeless man pretending at architecture. He's nothing. The word nothing slams into the room like a hammer, but it doesn't land the way he intends. Because now the people here have seen your work. They've heard your reasoning, watched your pencil dance across the page with precision born, not of luck, but of mastery. The investor's voice slices through Harrington's outrage. "Then test him." Harrington blinks. "What?" "Test him," the investor repeats, calm but firm. "Bring your proposal. Let us put it against his. Let the numbers, the models, the projections speak. If he's nothing, your design will crush his. If he's more, we will know." The room holds its breath. Harrington sneers, but he can't refuse. Ego won't allow him to back down. He signals to his assistant, who scurries out and returns minutes later with folders, rolled prints, and glossy 3D renderings. The table transforms into a battlefield. On one side, Harrington's polished but flawed designs, dressed in marketing, gloss. On the other, your raw sketches, graphite smudged but alive with strength. The investor gestures. "Explain." Harrington launches into a presentation, his voice booming with practiced confidence. He gestures to soaring glass facades, to projected profits, to flashy amenities. But beneath the shine, you hear the hollow gaps. You see the flaws no rendering can hide. When it's your turn, the room falls quiet. You step forward, hand steady as you lay your palm on the sketch. "A building is not just profit," you begin softly. "It's legacy. If you build for 10 years, it dies. If you build for a century, it lives." You move slowly, pointing to the corrected spans, to the improved airflow, to the reinforced foundation. You explain not just how the building stands, but how it serves people, the way light will fall into gathering spaces, the way structure will invite longevity. You speak not like a salesman, but like a craftsman. And that difference carries weight. By the time you finish, the room is silent, not because they doubt you, but because they are stunned. The investor breaks the silence. "Numbers?" An analyst in the corner clears her throat. "Running the calculations now, sir." Fingers fly across her laptop. The tension thickens until she looks up. His design is not only structurally sound, it's more cost-effective over 50 years. Maintenance savings alone, staggering. Harrington slams a fist on the table. This is a sham. He's an imposter. But the investor's gaze. Steele. No, he is the architect you should have been. The words cut deep, not just for Harrington, but for everyone listening. Because they know in this moment the tables have turned. The tycoon's arrogance has collapsed under the weight of truth. The investor turns back to you. Tomorrow, we meet again, with contracts. I want to see if you are ready not just to draw, but to lead. Contracts. The word rings like a bell in your chest. The same word Harrington flaunted in parking lots. The word you thought forever beyond your reach. And now, it hangs before you, not as a dream, but as a choice. Harrington storms out, face flushed, muttering threats. The door slams behind him, but the sound doesn't linger. What lingers is the sight of your sketch still spread across the table, surrounded not by doubt, but by admiration. The negotiation isn't finished, but the ground has shifted, and for the first time in years, the city leans in to hear your voice. The next morning feels different. The city hums the same as always, buses sighing at stops, horns barking, heels clacking against pavement. But for you, there's a rhythm beneath it, like a drumbeat echoing from deep inside. Today isn't just another day of survival. Today is decision, consequence, and reckoning. You arrive at the same glass tower as yesterday, backpack slung tight, heart steady despite the storm swirling within. The receptionist doesn't raise an eyebrow this time. She nods almost respectfully and waves you through. Funny how quickly perception changes when dignity is seen. The boardroom is fuller than before. Investors sit in a long row, their eyes sharp with calculation. Analysts shuffle papers. Architects whisper, comparing notes. The investor who first saw you waits at the head of the table, calm, collected, the faintest smile playing on his lips. And then the door swings open. Harrington bursts in. His suit sharper than ever, his grin wider, but his eyes, you notice, flicker with something new. Not confidence. Fear. He drops a stack of glossy binders on the table. Gentlemen, ladies. He booms. I've refined my project overnight, improved design, stronger projections. I assure you I am still your best investment. The investor gestures to you. And here, he says smoothly, we have an alternative. All eyes shift to you. For a moment, the weight of their stares presses down. But then you remember the insult in that parking lot, the word pathetic echoing in your chest. And instead of shrinking, you rise taller. You spread your sketches across the table. Not perfect renderings, not glossy marketing, but truth on paper. You speak quietly, but your words carry. This isn't about vanity. It isn't about profit alone. It's about endurance, a building that lives with the city, not against it. You lay out numbers refined with the analyst's help, show corrections to flaws others had overlooked. You explain not just structure, but humanity, how space affects life, how light feeds spirit, how design isn't decoration but foundation. The room listens, truly listens. Then the questioning begins. Investors fire challenges like arrows, cost breakdowns, zoning codes, long-term projections. You answer each with steady conviction, your memory sharp, your skill undeniable. Every doubt becomes a chance to prove that genius doesn't vanish with poverty. When the last question fades, silence hangs heavy, and then the lead investor leans forward. Harrington, he says evenly, you dismissed this man in a parking lot, called him worthless, and yet his design outlives yours in every way. This deal, he taps the table firm, is his. The words strike like thunder. Harrington's face drains of color. You can't, he's a nobody. His voice cracks, desperation leaking through, but the investor's gaze is iron. He's an architect. You're just a bully in a suit. Laughter stirs among the room. Small at first, then stronger, washing over Harrington like a tide. He staggers, grabs his folders, and storms out, the sound of his expensive shoes hollow on the polished floor. The door slams behind him, and with it, his empire begins to crumble. The investor turns to you. Now, he says softly, We begin again. With you. A contract slides across the table. Fresh ink. A pen gleaming under the lights. Your fingers tremble as you pick it up, not from fear, but from awe. You sign slowly, every stroke a reclaiming of the man you once were and the man you still are. When it's done, the room breaks into applause. Some rise, shaking your hand, offering smiles of respect. The investor simply nods, his eyes saying, "More than words could." You step to the window, looking out at the city. The skyline stretches wide, towers of steel and glass jutting upward. Soon, one of those towers will be yours, not just as design, but as testament. Testament that a black homeless man humiliated in a parking lot rose again, not through revenge, but through brilliance, patience, and dignity. You don't need Harrington's downfall to feel victory. You need only the paper signed beneath your hand, the recognition in the eyes around you, and the quiet strength of knowing you never truly lost yourself. And so, in that boardroom high above the city, you reclaim what arrogance tried to bury. Not just a deal, not just dignity, a future. The applause fades, and the boardroom empties one by one, leaving only you, your sketch, and the sunlight pouring. Across the table, the city outside keeps rushing. Cars honk, cranes swing, people scurry. But for once, time feels slow. You run a hand across the paper, smudges of graphite on your fingertips, and smile quietly to yourself. Not long ago, you were another shadow in an alley, a man invisible to the world, dismissed as nothing. Now, the same hands that once shook from cold have signed a contract that will shape skylines. The same mind that was mocked in a parking lot has proven itself undeniable. It's not just about buildings or money or even redemption. It's about memory reclaimed, dignity restored, and the reminder that worth doesn't vanish when the world stops looking. As you gather your sketches and step toward the door, you carry something greater than a deal. You carry proof that resilience is power, that brilliance waits patiently beneath hardship, and that no insult, not even the cruelest, can erase a man's truth. The city belongs to many, and now, once again, it belongs to you.